Let's take a few minutes and talk about DCAs on the LV1 Classic. Basically, a DCA is a remote control for a group of faders. So for example, if you had all of your drums assigned to a DCA, you could use that DCA as a remote control for all of those faders. So that's really all we're doing. So there are several ways to assign DCAs in the LV1 Classic. The first of which is to basically go to your channel, and if you go to channel view, you'll see link as part of the right hand column. And so if you wanted all of your drums to be link group 1 or DCA 1, then you could just make that assignment, go to the next channel and assign that, go to the next channel and assign that. That's a little tedious, and so there's a way within LV1 Classic to make this a little easier. So if we go to our patch page and under select patch view, right now we're looking at inputs. If we go to internal, then that's an easy way to assign our buses and groups and all of those things. So if we go to the top of our channel list, we can see that link group 1 has kick in, kick out, and snare trot because those are the ones that we just assigned. But let's say we wanted all of our drums on link group 1. We could just continue our patch there and it's done. So it's very simple. If we wanted our bass to be link group 2, we could just assign our basses to 2. Guitars on 3, keys on 4, tracks on 5, and so on. So if we wanted to do it that way, that's great. Now if we go to the page where we see our link groups in action, this is an easy way to name them. So here we would just say these are our drums, then bass, then electric guitar, then keys, then tracks, and so on. So now all the channels that are assigned to this drum DCA will be impacted by a change to that DCA. So just for demonstration's sake, I'll take this blank channel here and just assign link group 1, which is drums, to that channel. So you can see when I lower that DCA, there's a ghost fader that happens behind our input faders, so we can see the degree to which we've lowered the volume of those faders. But you can see that their relative level stays the same. So again, it's acting as a remote control for that group of faders. So when you think about DCAs, you know, some people mix with DCAs. In other words, they'll assign all of their input channels to DCAs and then use the DCAs as a way to mix the level of instrument types relative to each other. That's a good way to do it. You know, if you're setting up your console for volunteers to not have to worry about channels that might be buried on a different layer or whatever, you know, set up some DCAs and let them just control the level of those faders with fewer faders. That's an easy application for how DCAs could be effective in a service or event. So again, naming and assigning DCAs in LV1 Classic is very simple. The easiest way for me to do it is to go to the internal view on the patch window and make your assignments there. So another aspect of link groups or DCAs that's important to talk about is this spill function. So basically, for demonstration purposes, you know, I said we could either assign input faders or groups or anything else really to a DCA. Let's pretend that we're using input faders for our DCAs. So I'm going to assign all of my drums to DCA 1, all of my bass channels to 2, my electrics to 3, keys to 4, etc. So we can go in and in our mixer window, we can label drums, bass, electrics, keys. That's what we've done on our DCA level. So now if I select my drum DCA, I know that all my drums are assigned to that DCA. So if I hit spill, now you see my DCA and all of its members on one screen. So this is a great tool because it's an easy way to kind of see where your DCAs, what's populating your DCA, and if you need to make any changes within the relative level of those faders, then you can go back out and now your DCA master will keep those changes and keep the relative levels. So if we select bass, spill, We can see the members of the DCA there. Similarly, we get out of that, we can select electrics and do that as well. Now, we don't have to necessarily be on the DCA page in order to do that, because even if we're in looking at our first bank of faders, you see this link up here. Underneath, that shows which DCA is selected. So if you're mixing your show and you want to see the drums DCA spilled out, it's just 2 buttons away. So it's an easy way to sort of monitor and control the members that are in each of your link groups or DCAs. Now, you'll see next to link on our patch window here is mute groups. So now, some people find mute groups to be really effective in terms of especially managing a transition in a service or event. Let's say you want to, with one button, mute all of the vocal effects when your worship pastor starts talking between songs. Well, we can do that very easily by going to our effects. We have our verb and delay here, so I just want to assign them to mute group 1. There's my reverbs and my delay. So now if I go back to my mixer view, if I hit mute group 1, let me get to my vocal layer so we can see our effects. So I've got my vocals here, and let's say we're mixing, and now it's between songs and our worship pastor wants to talk. Just hit mute group 1. Now my vocal effects are muted. Unmute, and now we're good to go. So you can use DCAs to do that. You can use mute groups to do that, but it's an easy way to manage channels in your session. So let's say you wanted to have all of your band inputs on a mute group, all of your vocals on a mute group, some of your playback channels on a mute group. You could do that very easily. And the way to assign those, again, is in the internal view of our patch tab, and you make your assignments in these blocks here. So it's an easy patch bay oriented way to make those changes happen. So that's the basic functionality of DCAs in the way that we traditionally use DCAs or VCAs. But LV1 Classic, if you'll notice in the layers window, it says link/DCA. So we need to talk about what link groups are. If you've used other consoles and you hear the word link, you think about linking channels. And that's essentially what this is, but you can also tie those link parameters to your DCA. So for example, I have my drum DCA right here, and you can see as I move the DCA fader down, it's basically creating a ghost fader saying that my DCA is a remote control for those drum faders. But what if I need to change other parameters about all of my drums? So if I hit link here in the top left and scroll down to my drums, now you'll see that all of my drum channels are showing an orange number 1 because that's DCA group 1, and it is showing that they're all active. So now I can change certain parameters. So let's say I want to trim all of those channels. I can go to my trim knob, and if I trim down my kick in channel, it trims down all the channels to the same degree. So if you're in a situation where you're in the middle of sound check and all your inputs are feeling good, but it's just hitting your outputs a little loud, just go to your link group, trim things down a little bit, and you're done. So you can do it with trim, you can do it with other sends, you can do it with pan, you can do it with a lot of things. You can also do it with a plugin. So if I come to my vocals page on my fader layout and go to link group vocals, now all of those channels are linked. So I've got my fader linking them there, but let's say I want to apply a plugin to all of those channels at once. Let's say we're needing some waves tune real time on our vocals. I want to go to Insert 8, my plugin list, pitch shift, waves tune real time. Now all 4 channels are populated with that plugin. So things like gain and trim and plugins and pan, those parameters can be changed across multiple channels very easily by using your DCAs as link groups as well. Link groups and DCAs can be really powerful tools. So just to review, your DCAs control basically a group of faders as a remote control. So when I bring my drum DCA down, the relative volume of faders changes. Could be input faders, could be groups, could be any number of things that your DCA is controlling. But in this case, we're controlling our drum faders. If we go to select our drum DCA and spill, Now all of our drums are spilled to the screen. So my drum DCA, all the inputs, and the drum verb are all spilled to the screen because that's what's assigned to that DCA. If I unspill, but I want to see the link parameters, now I can see all of my drum parameters that are linked. So my faders are now linked, my input and trim are linked, hands can be linked. So there are a lot of things that happen with your link in your DCA that are independent and collective. So really dig into this feature because it's an important aspect of mixing in LV1 Classic. So next, we're going to move on to talking about auxes, matrices, and sends.